complain. Is that good? I don't know who I'm talking to, it's just me. That should be good. Welcome back to Zuko Builds. I got this custom bookshelf order that I'm gonna teach you guys how to build. Let's get right into it. So we have a few different measurements for this project. The bottom's gonna be 26 by 10, the back is gonna be 26 by 8, the sides are gonna be 10 by 10 inches, and the center divider is gonna be 9 1/4 by 7 1/4 inches. And in order to get 10-inch wide boards, I had to start with the 1 by 12, so I'll go ahead and rip everything down on the table saw. With these smaller pieces, I can cut them to size on my miter saw. The reason the center divider is going to be 9 1/4 by 7 1/4 is to accommodate for the 3/4 inch thick boards that I'm using on the bottom and for the back. This way everything turns out to be 8 by 10. Now let's take our two longer boards over to the table saw. The bottom's going to be 10 inches and the back is going to be 8 inches wide. I'll make the first rip about 1/4 of an inch wider than I need the final width to be. Then I'll flip it over and rip it down to my final width. And if you guys are new to using table saws and you're still not too comfortable yet, click the video on the top right. I go over some very basic safety tips to get you guys started using your table saws. Now that everything's cut to its final dimension, I'm going to go ahead and do a dry fit, make sure everything lines up and fits the way I want it to. Then after that, I'll round over all the edges on my router table, but that step is totally optional. And for the back side of this, I accidentally forgot to rip that down to 8. That was cut to 10 inches. So I took it over to the table saw again and ripped the back side down to 8 inches. Once you know everything fits the way you want it to, let's go ahead and sand. I only took it up to 150, then I'll round over the edges and give it my final 220 grip. One more step before rounding over the edges. I don't want to round over the edges that are going to be joining together. You want those to be square so you get a nice tight fit, so I'm just marking all of that out. And you'll notice I cut the backside down to its final width. Now if you chose to round over the edges, this is the time to do it, just making sure you don't touch those edges that you marked off. Now we can give it the final sanding. I usually finish with 220 grip, but whatever you use, go ahead and finish with that. For the assembly, I'm just using wood glue and brad nails to start. The brad nails will just hold everything together while the wood glue sets. Once it sets for a few minutes, I'll go ahead and pop some dowels in. If you guys don't have these corner clamps, I really suggest you get them, especially if you're building a lot of shelves or just anything that needs to be 90 degrees. These things come in handy. Of course, using them with a square as well, just to make sure everything is perfectly at 90. With the sides up and perfectly at 90 degrees, let's go ahead and drop our back in, and then we can start drilling our dowels. And to hold the back in place while I'm drilling the dowels, I'm just using a clamp here. If you don't have a clamp long enough, you can use brad nails. I just wanted to avoid more holes. When using a doweling jig, you want to make sure you have it clamped nice and tight. You don't want any wobble in it, or else your hole's going to be a little messy and it might be a little too loose for whatever dowel you're using. To make sure everything stays nice and aligned, I'm just going to go ahead and pop that first dowel in while I finish the rest. If you want to see a quick tip on how I use my dowels and how I plug holes with them, go ahead and click my Quick Tip Tuesday playlist, and I have a quick video on those. And I'll go ahead and drill out the rest of these. Now let's go ahead and sand these dowels flush. That way everything is nice and buttery smooth. So just as I was about to finish the final assembly, my client called and said she actually wants the front corners rounded over. So let's go ahead and do that. To round these over, I'm just going to take a cap from a spray paint can, connect it from edge to edge, mark that out with the pencil, then I'll take a jigsaw and cut that out. With that marked out, we can clamp it down, make sure it's nice and tight to our workbench, and go ahead and cut that out. Unless you're really good with the jigsaw, which I know I'm not the best with, I usually don't get a clean cut right off the bat, so I'll take some sandpaper and clean everything up by hand. Now for the sides, it would have been a lot simpler, I guess, if the sides weren't already attached, but no biggie. Let's go ahead and clamp the whole shelf down and do the same to both sides. Now that everything is nice and rounded over and sanded down, let's go ahead and attach the center divider. I'm just measuring out and finding the exact center of this whole shelf. I'll make a tiny mark and go ahead and place the center divider right in the middle of that. I'll go ahead and make sure everything is nice and square, and also make a mark on the back side so I can draw a line on the back and know exactly where to pop some nails in. And I'll carry that line all the way down to the back, and this is a great reference to where I should shoot my nails in. Now let's go ahead and put some wood glue on the back and the bottom edge and let that set for a little bit and pop our brad nails in. And for the bottom side, I just clamp the speed square against the center divider, making sure everything is nice and straight, and taking a combo square to mark a line straight down the middle. Once everything is attached, let's go ahead and fill these ugly little nail holes with some wood filler. Alright guys, I went ahead and sanded all those markings off and all that wood filler down. Went ahead and finished this. If you followed along, you should have a beautiful piece like this. Thank you guys for watching. Dude, that's it. We're done. So simple, so beautiful. You can honestly do this whole build with just a circular saw, some glue, and clamps of course. But I'm sure my client's gonna love it. I know I love it. Let me know if you guys loved it down in the comments below. Hit that like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you're not already, and follow me on Instagram. You can send me custom orders there, and let's just be friends. Like I can honestly use a few more friends. Like 1 or 2. Anyway, see you guys next week.